Hi, good afternoon. My name is Narayanan. I'm the president at TiE Chennai today. At least my current position is that of the president for tenure for the next 2 years or so. I am asked to speak to you about 5 points that I learned from my initial ventures. Actually, ever since I started venturing in 1983, it's been venture after venture after venture after venture after venture. It continues to be venture after venture after venture after venture. So, I can't quite tell you when this epiphany hit me on each of these 5 points that I would like to share with you. It certainly doesn't relate to my initial ventures. It would apply today to any of the existing ventures or the previous ventures. Let me start with the first one. Always make sure that you have a team of guys who are nearly equal to you, around you. Ideating is an important factor in a startup. Ideating is a very important element, especially during the early years, and you always need around you people who you deal with as equals and who feel equal so that they are able to ideate with you. Without this, you will not be able to keep pace with the changing environment. Second point, there are always moments when you don't have an answer to a question that is raised by one of your colleagues. This happens to all entrepreneurs all the time. There is the good news and there is the bad news. The good news is that you are receiving a query. The bad news is you don't know the answer. The double bad news is that you can't afford to allow the person to believe that you don't have the answer. If you are the entrepreneur, you must seemingly have an answer to every single query. So, it's always good to remember that you are supposed to have the answers. You're not always only asking queries. You ask queries only about performance, about day-to-day management, but when there are queries to which you are addressed, you must have an answer. Don't mix up your likes with your assessment of people is my third advice to you. What does that mean? You have all these nice people who come around you, like this camera lady over here, Kadambari. She looks great, she smiles, she talks well. If I make the assumption that the likes, reserve your likes for Facebook. If you like a person and then you have to assess such a person, invariably you will be caught in a fix where you can't differentiate between the two. Inadvertently, all the people around you will also know that you're mixing up your likes with your assessment of people. Now, whenever an assessment crops up, you're obliged to act on the basis of the decision that the outcome of such an assessment. Please remember that, and you are better off reserving your likes on Facebook and not bringing it into your work life. Often, number 4, often we get a feel of a person and we go on a hunch that the experience you've had of that person is going to be repeated time and again. Actually, it cuts 2 ways. The same thing happens to performance. If you look at the analytics that you can do of the various people you deal with, you will observe that there is a sameness and a pattern that is emerging. When dealing with people, especially when you're an entrepreneur, often you are hiring people or relying on people or depending upon people which for all practical purposes are life-threatening to you. And therefore, you must make a decision as an outcome of this. And here's my advice to you. There is going to be a pattern. If you find once, you can ignore it saying it's an accident. Twice, it's a coincidence. Third time, it's a pattern. Shoot it. Close the subject. You will, as an entrepreneur, you do not have the luxury of delaying this, discussing it with your colleague, like or no like. If people are emerging with a pattern which is negative to your requirement, shoot them. Last gem for the day, most people are extremely happy if they are being supervised or observed. That includes you, that includes perhaps me. When you're riding on the road, there's a traffic light, first thing we look around is to see if there are any cops and we are in a hurry. That is observed. Now, in India, we are used to working only if we are supervised or being observed. And therefore, if people are not being supervised or observed, if you haven't built this process into whatever you're doing, then although it is good for you to trust people, it is better for you to cross-check periodically. So my advice to you, any process that is not being checked periodically or being supervised is headed for disaster. Thank you. That's all for today.